there, and welcome to another Talks episode at Get Good. I am Bruce, and I'm joined, as always, by Manos. How are you doing, my fine sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Baby slept, I slept, everything is good. Even the wife slept some.
It is amazing how sleep makes everything better.
Yeah. It's just a lovely morning then.
Yeah, I'll be so angry and grumpy and like, oh, life is so bad, and then just one good night's sleep, and suddenly,
Everything
life is
just
good.
clears. Yeah. So it's good today.
Nice. So on that topic of things getting better, we are talking about progression today. I guess in terms of the flow of this, we'll look through a selection of models from both of us that tell something of our story of improvement. Yeah. But I guess I'm wondering, Manus, at the start of things, like what have you always tried to keep in your mind in terms of getting better or progression, or have you? Because I know a lot of people are saying like, well, I'm consciously trying to get better. Some people are like, no, I'm just going to paint models and have fun. Have you kind of tried to apply a methodology to improving?
Yeah, I kind of did and I kind of didn't, which means I think I kind of got the best of two worlds in the sense that I definitely started out with like painting for me and only me. I used Pinterest in the beginning. I'm not super into socials, so it actually took me some time before I got into even Instagram, and I thought it was for the young people. So
the youth.
Yeah, so I was like, probably nothing for me. Turns out it really is a great way to get inspired. But I was using some Pinterest, and I had I started actually also on Reddit because I used Reddit for other things, mainly just laughing at the cesspool, whatever. So I kind of also started with seeing what people posted on Reddit and getting a bit of, I guess, inspiration. And sometimes a talk just pops up and it's how to improve whatever, or how to get a nicer brush, or whatever it is. So I wasn't aware, but I was very much painting for myself and only for myself, which meant I wasn't too focused on like I guess improvement or how to like skip a few steps, if that's how to put it. But because I mean, ultimately, I think it's healthy to go through all of the steps, but some of them you don't have to dwell and get frustrated with doing the same things and not having it work. Yeah. And I think I was fortunate in the sense that I kind of quickly got it to work, and I got better. So it's not, I mean, in the beginning, I wasn't that conscious about it, how to exactly get better. But that definitely came later when I discovered like more things than it. After the YouTube videos, you kind of get into, oh, okay, there's also the Patreon videos and all of those things. And then you're kind of getting sucked in, and then you're exposed to like the really good work, right? Because of course, in the beginning, when I'm seeing, I guess, Duncan paint up a Space Marine, that is perfectly fine, and it was a great way to start for me too. I didn't paint many Space Marines in the beginning, but it's whatever. The same things applied. I watched a lot of Dr. Faust on YouTube. And
Dr. Faust Painting Clinic. It's an absolute classic.
Very good at explaining, kind of like, I don't want to. Some of the videos in the beginning, especially, were in the lower end, which was perfect for me, because I would need to fix my motor skills just even that in the beginning. So I mean, no reason for me to jump straight into looking at Moretto art and trying to do that, because I couldn't, and I wouldn't have succeeded with it. So I think for me it was a healthy mix of like getting into it, but because of myself, and then slowly easing it. I'm saying slowly, but I spend a lot of time, so it's not, I mean, it looks like and this is why I think this talk is quite important. When I post something to Patreon or Instagram or YouTube, you really only see where we are at now, and that shows nothing of the full picture. I try to be pretty open with how much time it takes to create something, because it does take a lot of time. It's not, I mean, some people can probably get to a point where they can make out all the details and stuff like that very quickly. But I'm not that fast even now. I've gotten better to like the whole understanding of the model, the lighting, the nuances, all of that. I'm much better. But it's not like when you see a 30-minute video, yeah, sure, but that's a snapshot of those 30 minutes. I'm probably refining afterwards, and because the perfectionist side, I guess. And also some of the videos are clipped heavily. So you're only really seeing 40 minutes of work, but it was 3 or 4 hours, right?
I mean, my personal favorite is like when even if you're just like, if you've got a recording of painting a miniature, and you just like, oh, here's a 10-minute block that I'm just gonna speed it up so it's a minute, and you see the brush moving fast, and I'm like, damn, it'd be great to paint like this. And even that can be like a little bit misleading, because obviously most YouTubers don't like have a little diagram that appears like, oh, this is times full speed, just so you know. They just put it up there and almost expect you to intuit it. Yeah. And it's ultimately, I get the double-edged sword of the world we live in now, in terms of Instagram and YouTube and even TikTok to a lesser extent, is you're getting many snapshots in time. You're not getting the full story, and the full story is ultimately more difficult, less enjoyable, has more questioning and almost the hard bits that aren't as fun to talk about. So we don't really talk about them, but this is perhaps a good venue to talk about. Those moments.
For me, they are exciting to talk about, but they're just not as glamorous, I guess. And you kind of want to show your nice-looking shiny car, and you don't want to talk about all the hours spent under the hood. So, I mean, it is a difference, and that's exactly why I am trying to be open with these things. And sometimes I have had things I struggled on, and I still do, or where I'm not too sure if it will work out or not. And I have no issue voicing it, because I think it is very much a part of the hobby, and it is a part of progression.
Yes,
it is, because you kind of have a ceiling, and it's gonna be rough to push that. It is hard work, but I mean, you got to do it. If that's like, you can sit comfortably somewhere in your painting journey, I guess, and stay there. You can, which is fine. But if you want to push on and become better, I mean, you're gonna get sore like you did in the gym, or in a like,
or when you're losing weight, or when you're doing like any form of self-improvement is going to involve a little bit of discomfort, and that's good, because you can't have the good without the bad.
No, and especially not too much of the bad, of course, but in my eyes, it makes the good so much sweeter, because you struggled a bit to get there, and now it's just, okay, it clicked, or even sometimes it's just, I got it done, right? And for me at least, the sense of accomplishment is just, it is greater. And it would definitely not be the same if I was breezing it through everything.
Yeah.
So, I'm not. And I want to show that even though I can paint some nice looking models now, I couldn't always.
Yeah.
I couldn't always. Of course not. It's not, I wasn't born like that.
You didn't just come out of the womb like paintbrush in hand, let's go.
Nope.
Outrageous. Nope. Okay, well, I guess that's a good bridge then to maybe start on my journey, because I think I'm a little bit different to you in terms of I mean, I wish I could say, oh, this is why I got into miniature painting. I don't think I can put an easy finger on it. I was just watching a load of YouTube, and then maybe fell into watching a Ninjon video or something like that. Yeah. And I think like a lot of people, I have memories of walking past the Games Workshop as a boy and staring in the window and looking at the cool models, but was never into it in that way. Like I was just kind of watching it from afar. And then I think the new world of the internet, you kind of begin stumbling upon 40K lore and stuff like that. And it is, for all its many faults, interesting and fun, and the grim darkness is neat. And so there's a lot of feelings that were welling in. And then I was like, well, I'm going to give this miniature painting a go. But with all my creative endeavors, I think there's a case of wanting it to be really good, or as good as it can be for me. Yeah. And so I set out wanting to be good. That's probably like my mindset from the beginning. Yeah, absolutely. I was like, I know I'm not going to, sit down with my first model and paint a masterpiece. I'm not that naive, and I'm very aware of that like Dunning-Kruger effect of when you're new to something, you think everything's easy. And so I tried to shovel that to the side and just thought, okay, I'm going to paint, and as long as the next model is better than the previous model, I'm happy. But started with a very conscious attempt at improvement. And I think as we go through these images that I'll show, that there's an inflection point where things really change, which is probably a point that I really want to bring home to everyone. And it's funny because I wasn't aware of it until I began putting the pictures together for this video. And so I was quite shocked when I discovered it. So without further ado, the first miniature.
Oh, wow.
This is
that your actual first one?
That is the actual first miniature I painted. This was in August of last year when I sat down with my speed paints, my Vallejo Express, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to paint me a Space Marine. I'm going to paint me a salamander. I don't know why I picked a salamander, and actually on reflection, I don't know why I picked this model. I think if I could do it all again, I probably would have thought, you know what, good first model is probably a more simple Space Marine, not this dude in Gravis armor or whatever it's called. But this was the first one. And, looking at it now, I can see I was trying stuff. There's some edge highlights on things. Like, yeah, the paint's rough in a lot of places, but it has a base, thumbs up. Didn't cheap out on that. Got the golds on reasonably neat, and finished this and was like, you know what? This was a good time. I had fun painting this. You can see the mold line very obviously in the bottom of the link.
I want to say there are a lot of people who would be happy to feel that.
Tabletop, baby.
This is a great first model. I want to say, yeah, sure, it might have, but when I'm looking at that photo, I'm thinking, yep, you can go somewhere. You already have like
fundamentals.
Yeah, and about a bit of like light, and to get a highlight, like an edge highlight, and you already have an idea of how to achieve things. Now it's like really learning it, I guess.
Yeah,
I think it's a great first model. Wow, mine did not look like that. I unfortunately don't have like photos of my first model. It did not look. It didn't look bad, but it did not look like that.
Well, I have this in my cabinet downstairs, and this is never going anywhere. Like it is. No. I think if you have that first thing, it is so nice just to keep it around. But I mean, this was also like, I began to learn some things that hopefully would improve as I got later on. I think a key thing was, I always used to think that painters like had some secret for getting their brush into hard to reach places, and it turns out they didn't. You just have to get the brush into the hard to reach places. And so it was after this model I was like, oh, sub assemblies, I should pick up that. So I painted this model, and then I went on holiday, as one does, not because I'd painted the model, that would have been good.
Celebrating.
Yeah. And I'd painted the model, and I'd almost made the decision, I really like this, I want to keep painting. Box one ticked, really enjoyed it. And we went on holiday to Wales, and in my free time, I remember watching more videos on how to paint and just digesting the information. And so the second model, all I want to do is learn some stuff from this guy. Ultimately, next model better. And so that brings me on to this model, which, what are they called again?
Oh, no.
Legions of Votan.
Yeah, Votan.
Yeah. And so I think when I looked between the two, so in my mind's eye, the difference between the first model and this model was night and day. Now when I look at it, I'm like, I see it's a slight improvement, but not a massive one. And ultimately, it was just about making it neater and understanding some things that I didn't on the first model, which was like recess shading and just really spending, the golds, making sure that the recess shading was in there, so the gold really popped. Just taking the time to make sure that the paint was thinned more, although I think was learning on how to thin paint properly. I look at this paint and there's a lot of texture on it. But also doing a face for the first time with this guy.
Yeah, I noticed that. And
head on a separate thing, sub-assemblies, so...
Oh, so you actually did sub-assemblies on this one?
I did sub-assemblies on this. No, not massively, it was basically the two arms, the head and the body, but really useful.
Yeah.
And so I think between model one and this one, it was about neatening it up. And this is also when I learned from the first model I don't like speed paints.
Yeah.
And stopped using. I use contrast paints now, but not for speed painting miniatures. I use them as washes almost. If I wash. But I actually understood that one of the things I really like was not the slapping the speed paint all over the model and walking away. It was the careful, deliberate placement of where the pigment goes.
Yeah.
And so, third mini, I got the Annihilators, and it was my return to Gravis armor and a learning experience in working with a harder to paint color. First two green, green, blue, and then, I know Dark Angels fans will tell me off because Deathwing aren't meant to be Annihilators, but whatever. I just like the paint, the color scheme. But coming back to it and learning more about weathering, because weathering was something I hadn't really tried, and chipping away at panels and having the bravery to do a paint job and then paint over it. And that's when I tried to make a vow of do stuff that scares you. I know you and I have talked about this a lot, because I think, for me personally, there's a real fear factor when you've beautifully painted a panel and then you're like, now it's time to chip away at it, and it feels wrong, but sometimes you got to do it. And this
it's
piece,
a scary thing.
Yes.
But it's a pretty good segue into freehanding something on your mini, for example, because you're essentially doing the same. You're painting something or finishing something almost, and then you gotta put paint on top of that.
And it's real scary.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But then the voice I hear in my head is yours, saying, "There's no mistake that you can't fix with more paint, really." So, and so the thing I've stopped doing, which was, I think, and I wonder if this is a trap that a few painters fall into, is you didn't paint it that way because of fluke. You painted it because of your skills. And so if you have to paint it again, it'll suck, but you can do it. You can do it. You've shown you can do it. And so you've got to get into that uncomfortable area, and you have to then try. For this model then, I think another thing I was trying to play more with was volumes. It's harder on the kind of armor in general, but I don't know what the name of it is, the skull with wings in the center of the chest.
Yeah.
The
Aquila, is it called?
Aquila? Maybe, I don't know. It's, lore nerds, please correct us.
Yeah.
but yeah, making sure that you had that dark foundation, you went lighter as you went to the edges.
Yeah.
And this was the first model I think I was probably proud of in that way. And finished it and was thought, you know what, I'm happy with this. I look at it now and you see all the mistakes that you don't at the time, but it was like I'm feeling more confident with the brush. I'm feeling more confident with what I'm trying, which then led me on to this Death Guard, the Blight Lord, whatever they are. And this was when I think, number one, I found a love of Nurgle. And number two, it was just a case of take everything you have learned and try it, and don't be afraid. Like there's OSL on this model. I probably wouldn't do the OSL like this now, but at the time it was a brave point of bravery because I was afraid of mucking up. It has a lot of detail. It's overweathered, I think now, and I think I could paint the volumes a lot better. But this was a case of I'm really enjoying it. I'm pushing myself. I'm seeing improvements with each model, and then a critical change happened. So I've just realised there's a giant mold line on the horn in the top left. Just don't look at that. No, look at that. It's fine. So after this, I realized that I was getting all of my improvement from my own pushing myself and like the occasional YouTube video, but I didn't have one thing, which was community.
Yeah. And
it was shortly after this model that I joined Richard Gray Discord.
Yeah.
And found people like yourself, and others, and suddenly there was quite a dramatic shift, not in terms of that desire to keep painting and improving, but the chat around models makes you better, because someone will be working on something and be like, oh, I was playing with this, but then I realized X, Y, and Z, and they're not painting your model, but you'll still learn from that. You'll still take that, and you'll throw a question like, oh, what do people think about this? And you begin to think of things in a more critical way, I think, and take that forward. That's the previous one. And so that led me to this guy. Go on.
Just to say about that community thing is, I think even just an important thing is the hype around it, because people are actually hyping each other. I mean, not massively, but they are saying good job. And if you're asking what should I change, or what could I change, or what could be better, that you will get some feedback on it. But generally, people are very, very supportive. And I think the desire to learn and to push, you need something to fuel it. And the motivation can very well come from community.
Yes.
I think it's one of the strongest motivators out there, is others are interested in what you do, and now you want to do a good job, right?
Yes. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
And people praise, this is what I hadn't appreciated either, is that people will praise you for getting out of your comfort zone, even if maybe it wasn't a big success. And I think a lot of people are quite hard on themselves in this hobby, but I tried this, it didn't quite work. People are like, yeah, but you tried it. Well done. Like, so proud of you. That's great. Like, you're going to nail it next time. And that level of support can't be overstated.
No, definitely not.
And so if the Death Shroud was kind of pre-community and pre-Richard Gray, then we get into the Lord of Decay, I think his name was. And I look at this and suddenly I have a harder time seeing the fixes that I would push to it now, because I began to number one, benefit from the voices around me. This is also when I started painting non-metallic metal, and put away the TMMs and put them in the drawer, and have not gotten them out since. And this was the model that I painted with continuous feedback, in terms of, oh, I'm doing this, what do people think, and getting that like those thoughts and feedback, and refining stuff and pushing contrast and doing everything that you're supposed to, and really valuable input, I mean, from yourself, from others. And I just hadn't realized until I'd looked at the models what a difference that made. And so this is then the point that I think I've begun to accelerate in. I mean, the jumps aren't as big, but the jumps are still there.
And they are important.
Yes, hugely.
These jumps are, I would say it's probably like, of course you want to have like refined motor skills, which is basically what you're training in the beginning, right? You want to be neat, was basically what you said between like figure 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But that is, I mean, I don't want to say easy, but that is one of the easier things, because you can see that yourself with your own eyes. You can see, okay, I was neater. And it is a skill you can just train by doing more of the same, basically. And the skills you are picking up later, much harder. You will have to push so hard on that ceiling as you move, like, I guess, further along and towards the limit of your capabilities. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I think these are incredibly valuable. I think so.
It's funny because I think one of the most repeated things I hear or I see in most communities is everyone else is getting so much better and I'm not. Yeah. And it's like, you just don't see your own improvement like other people do. No. And I think that's where community can really come in, because it's a second, third, fourth set of eyes.
Yeah.
And I see it like, this is awful, I did this. I'm like, yeah, but look over here, look at what you're improving, because we have that negativity bias. And just as you occasionally need people to break down the mistakes you've made, and that's the hard part of feedback, you also gain people building you up and noticing the improvements and the things that you're trying that you've not noticed.
Yeah.
And so, like, capping off my journey brings me to this, which is, it's my last completed model, and I've got the Snick Rot and Sepsimus since then, which I think are improvements on this. But this is, I think, a good cap-off point in terms of where my journey is to date, because there's a lot of NMM, there's freehand, there's a bit more posing, there is care and attention. And yeah, I still see the things I changed, and I still need to refine this model. But it is the point where I think I've learned, number one, to be really happy with the work I do, and number two, to appreciate the realms of enjoyment that are still there to have, even once the model's done. And I actually, whenever I look at this model, I just focus on the relic holder's shoulder guard, because it was the community feedback on that really like gave me a new understanding on things like NMM. And I think that's what brings me joy now when I look at my models, is I remember when David told me about this, or Doug pointed out this part of the model, and that's really important, because it shows, number one, that you're receptive to that feedback, but you're learning from it and you're taking that forward.
I agree completely. Yeah. And I think it was a fantastic piece. And I think it was a fantastic piece for you, because you put so much time and effort into it, and not only like sitting down on the desk, but also figuring out how to, right? And how do I do this? Not just, even when you weren't actively painting, you were still thinking about painting.
Yes.
You were still thinking about, okay, how do I do this? How can I create an effect that looks the way I want it to? Maybe more of this and less of this, and asking for like the feedback. Is this a good idea? Is this the way to fix something or make something stand out? And sometimes it's a yes and sometimes it's a no. But I think this one was incredible for your painting journey, because of like, you really got into thinking about the model also when you weren't actively painting on it. Right?
Yes.
And I do. Yeah.
I was going to say, is the first model where I've repainted areas significant, like just like I said, okay, this isn't working, but that's okay. We're just going to repaint it and not, not stress about it and not beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
So I guess where my journey closes, that brings us up to the modern day. For me, that like in terms of output, then it's probably a good point to look at where your journey happened. So you mentioned previously you don't have the very first model. So we're coming into this later, and I'll hand over to you, Manus, to talk about this model and all, like what it represents in terms of your painting journey, and maybe where you're at in your headspace when you came into this.
Yeah, this was at a point where my journey began with with actually only watching video, nothing else. I was sleeping on the couch with a friend, and staying on a couch and not really like being able to do anything. I filled the time with watching the videos on how to put a base layer down and all the beginner videos. And I found that kind of gave me a foundation to like the confidence to try something out, right? And yeah, that meant I did a few models just testing out like how to move the brush and how to get a
it's important for fundamentals. Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't great. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't great either. And even beginning, I knew I wanted to paint something that looked nice. I wasn't like not at the point you were, like already knowing I want to push, but I wanted it to look nice, right? And this model specifically, I think it's maybe a handful of models, like tester models, was one of the first ones where I actually spent some time. I used the bones models, the Reaper bones models, a lot in the beginning because I wasn't like too terribly concerned about like the quality of the sculpt itself. Yeah. I just wanted to try some things out, and they are cheap, dirt cheap, and like perfect for things like that. And they are, a lot of them, very open post, so you can actually get to things. They aren't like, you can't some of them are in sub-assemblies if they're big, but the normal character ones aren't. But they are pretty open post, which means you can get into stuff and paint them. And this one was one I had before that. I think one of the first models I did was a TMM model, and I could not get metallics. Like Games Workshop Metallics did not want to cooperate with me at all. So I ditched that pretty quickly. I think I found maybe a Vince V video or something on the whole NMM thing, and instantly was sucked in because I thought, okay, this is something I can use instead of having to struggle with what I couldn't get to work.
So I like that in an alternate dimension, there's a Manus out there who like the TMM works brilliantly, and
yes,
NMM, no thank you. I'm gonna keep with my metallics.
Yeah. But well, we are here in this timeline.
That's it. I like this version of you. It's fine.
Yeah. So so this is one of the first ones where I really wanted to try and make that work. It is not a perfect model at all, but you can see how I was trying to get a smooth transition on the shield and big long folds on the cloak and cape, and starting to make something look shiny and golden with high contrast. So yeah, it is. And also I was trying out different, like there's some steel, there's a bit of copper on, and there's some gold on. So I was kind of trying those things out, and I did that a lot. I think I have like 30 models or something of these kinds of like Dungeons and Dragons minis, where I was testing out what colors do I like the look of and how do they interact with each other, just mixing two colors together and trying to make a blend with that. So many things I just tried and tried, I guess.
Well, I guess true deliberate practice for you at this point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and also I was at that point where I spent about a weekend on a mini at that point. They were long painting sessions, 8 hours, 10 hours, something like that. But like a weekend. So a model was probably about, let's say, 20 hours or something, trying to be as neat as possible, because that was kind of like what fit the extent of my capabilities at that point. And as I said, a weekend was pretty good for that. So yeah, every model is kind of like that. And I did almost from the beginning try to go as far as I thought I could. So I stopped at a point where now I'm not adding anything to it. It is done to the extent of my ability.
Yeah.
So now I'm stopping. But it's not like, yeah, if I thought I could do it better, I would try and keep on. Yeah, this is a great example of me really wanting to glaze. So I spend a lot of time glazing. That's why also the armor looks like it does, because I'm trying to glaze over and glaze over and glaze over. Another example of me trying to get the right shine point on some non-metallics, and you can see I dropped it too on the spikes on the.
I was going to say, is this guy panel one? I think what's really interesting to me looking at these is obviously you can tell. I say you can tell. I can only tell because I've seen your work today. That I look at this and I say, oh yeah, this is someone on a path to improvement. Whereas if I painted this, I'd be like, yeah, it's great. But there is already the early kind of signs of what I'd call the Magnus style, even in these pieces. Yeah. And that to me is really quite interesting, because you were learning, you were trialing things, but you probably didn't appreciate at the time that you were still learning your style and your way of painting. And I think probably like elements of the precision that would come to define a lot of what you do, because I look at that, the halo, the whatever the heck it's called, the broken bit at the back, and I can see you painting that now, but obviously a lot neater and a lot more blended. But that like core approach, I'm like, that's the Magnus style. Yeah. That's what I like.
Yeah, and it is a funny thing, because it's kind of like every piece and everything I've tried, I've picked up something, of course, and I can do some things now that I definitely couldn't back then. But I haven't. I've stayed kind of true to how I'm painting in general, because I didn't want it to be someone else's work. We're getting into me doing like paint-alongs later on, but even then I still wanted it to look like I was the one painting it, right?
Yes.
So I wasn't trying to force a look from another artist per se. I was trying to take what they did and how they did it and what I could learn from it, but do it my own way. Yeah, and I did the same here. You can see kind of like the black lining, and you can tell that I painted these, even though they are quite in the beginning of me painting.
Yeah, but like it's stuff like the lids of the potions on the belt.
Yeah.
That like the pinpoint of light there, like I'd say your lighting tends towards the more dramatic, and whereas I think if I were painting this, I wouldn't bring those out, but you make them pop and build that excitement. And it is, I mean, if I may make one criticism, your bases are boring as hell, Manus. You gotta work on this. Yeah, it's not about the bases. Bases are boring. Okay, so this was phase one almost, and then you begin to move into this phase. So what began to change for you, and what marks these models?
Yeah, this is kind of phase two. if we imagine a phase 0 where I'm just bumbling about, and then a phase 1 from before, and then this is definitely phase 2. And this is, people might recognize this from Richard Gray's Instagram. And this is me looking at another artist and like how they put light on and how they achieve the exact look that they did. And so now I'm kind of in, okay, I want to make not only neat, but also like it has to look correct, I guess, in a lighting situation. So this is very much me trying to get into that. And I've said it a few times, not very visual. So everything for me in the hobby has been kind of like gathering a back catalog of like things, of experience, of trying out, of different shapes and different colors and different sizes and materials, trying things out and seeing what works and what doesn't. And that's why for me at least, a lot of the skill jump came from emulating what I see, because then I can say kind of, okay, this looks good, press save. I know I can do this. So when I see something that looks kind of like it, I can apply some of the same things, right? So this was very much me building up that like catalog and having things come together in a way I probably couldn't have done on my own. So this is also when I started, not right when I started, but when I got into Patreon, looking at some of the more specific content, and
this is
I
the
had a great
Emperor's
time
Champion model.
Yeah, it's the Emperor's Champion. Yeah,
it's a great model. It's so good.
It is a great model, and I've seen so many beautiful ones. I mean, so many of those. Yeah.
So sorry, I cut you up. This is your kind of Patreon forays almost.
Yeah, so this is kind of the Patreon phase where I'm actively seeking to do like better in that regard, and I think, and I wanted to find quality content, because not that you can't find quality content on YouTube, because you can, but it is a bit harder to find. And of course, like if you want to have like the top tier of painting and tutorial, and especially what I found important was the whole explaining how and why.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you see something on YouTube and it is beautifully painted, but not going as much into like what is everything going on around it, kind of like how am I achieving it? Why am I picking the colors? And how do I make this specific blend work for me, or whatever it is? So yeah, this was when I kind of got into, I don't want to say quality content, but
premium content, I think is the
premium, yeah. So and this is another example of me doing kind of the same. And it is one of the things I actually like with those kind of paint-alongs, seeing someone's like working progress photo, taking inspiration from that, and then finishing it.
Yes.
Because you kind of get some of, not kind of, you get some of the lighting, the light map done for you, and color choices and how bright to go on things, and and then you can go on from there and actually like apply it all over. So you get something given and you have to then do the last bits yourself. And I really enjoyed that at that point in time, because that meant you didn't like, I guess you had an easier start. So you didn't get discouraged because already from the get-go you were struggling, I guess.
Well, both you and I have spoken about momentum painting, and I think the benefit of something like this is you get yourself going, and you know, once once the tutorials run out, as they sometimes do,
Sometimes
you can just keep going because you have that momentum, you have that confidence, and you probably, once you started painting, you've begun to formulate ideas for how to complete it.
Yeah. I did that, and I did that on a fair few models, testing it out. And these are not like short paint jobs either. They are maybe, I don't know, 40, 50-hour paint jobs even, because I wanted to be as neat as possible, right? So they are longer paint jobs, but and the snapshot there just it doesn't show it necessarily. You can't see if I've done that in 2 hours or 200 hours.
I'm just going to assume you did it in 30 minutes, just a knock-up job.
And it's none of the two. So, but yeah, that was a great point also. Not to say that I don't follow like inspiration still. I still look at other people's stuff all the time and kind of guide from there. How do I want mine to look, and how can I start something or end something? And if I'm unsure on an effect on a sword or whatever it is, I will go out and try and find the inspiration somewhere and see how can it be rendered by others.
Yes.
And then trying to get into it there. So yeah.
And also like learning what you don't like as well. That's what kind of interested me in terms of our community chat we were talking the other day about NRM, and they are someone whom I really admire. I really like their paintwork.
Yeah,
and
I do too.
To hear other people say, hey, I really like it, but not for me. And it's like, right, okay, so you're gonna define your style also through the people who you want to take inspiration from, because
definitely.
They really jibe with your style. I mean, I guess the most divisive person is probably someone like Flamian, who you either really like their style or it's not necessarily for you, but you can still take inspiration from it.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually did in the beginning. I watched a lot of his content too, because I didn't want to rule anything out. I wanted to see everything and all of it. And that's not to say that I took inspiration from everyone I saw. It's not like I only want to see this or I only want to do this. No, I took inspiration from everything I saw. And it was important for me to go through those steps because I kind of found my style through it. And it is unique. And some people might not really like it, which is perfectly okay. You really, I think you really got to find something where you fit with that kind of style or that kind of painting, because you need to enjoy it to be able to really push, right?
Yeah. And so I guess if this phase on screen was the inspiration, the paint-alongs, the learning through kind of following more premium content, then we move into I'm developing my own style in this.
Yeah, this is also where I kind of found out, okay, I can and I want to do like full non-metallic schemes. It's okay for
I'm
me.
I'm a crazy person. This is what you're in.
Apparently. No, but before I was like, and I think that is a great way to kind of get into non-metallics, is trying it out on smaller things, like do a sword or do some trim or do the Aquila, whatever it's called, the chest eagle. Do some of those things that are limited, but have some metallic elements to it. And I got that model from a friend who bought, surprise, surprise, 2 boxes and didn't even need this one.
So it's funny how that works.
Yeah, some people do that. Wow. And I knew I wanted to try something on this one. I saw when I don't remember if I had started it out a bit. Maybe I did already, but I saw Da Vinci's. I don't even know what's its name, but it's the guy with the flaming blade in a full non-metallic steel suit too. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, okay, I can see he can do it on the entirety of one. I'll keep pushing. I think I did the head and some of the chest inspired by Phoenix, I even think, because I saw his Salamander version at that point.
Yeah.
So I kind of started there. And then, as I said, I'm taking inspiration wherever I find it. And I have no issue with voicing that because it's definitely part of it.
Hmm.
And of course, I mean, if you're, I think I've said it before, if you're copying one to one, you can be a nice guy and give the shout out, but it's not like you have to. I mean, we are posting freely on the internet, right? So
Yeah.
it is there for other people to be inspired by. That is the whole deal about it, right?
Yeah.
So of course I do that, and I think everybody should. So this is me trying out stuff on my own, trying to make the volumes nice and the metallics nice and all of those things with not having like the one-to-one reference of, for example, Richard Gray, or it could be Flamian or NRM or whoever is. Yeah.
How to take your inspirations and now apply it yourself with a new model and a new outlook.
Yeah.
So then,
and something similar. Yeah.
I was going to say, how does that then jibe with this piece, which isn't obviously full NMM?
Yeah, definitely me trying to do like very highlighted volumetrics. So pushing the shoulders all the way almost to white. I think actually a tiny bit of white. So going from pretty dark into pretty light. And it was also actually something where I not tried out for the first time, but where I wanted to do much more, whether it's steel, you can see on the gun, for example, which is much dark, because I I go pretty bright on metallics. It is my style and my look, I guess. And
you want them to pop, and we respect you for it.
I just wanted to shine. And so this was something where I'm trying to maybe not have it as shiny because it wouldn't really fit fit a weather gun like that. So yeah, everything I'm painting on, I'm trying. Not every piece I've tried something new, but I've tried to improve something, which means sometimes it has been me just like, okay, I think I can get this neater or more blended, or I want to try out magnification, or I want to try out a new like paint triad or whatever it is. So I have generally been trying out something else on every model, even though it might not be, okay, specifically I want OSL on this one.
Yeah.
So it's not always a technique thing. Sometimes it is just another part of the hobby I have been testing out. Yeah. And I didn't, it isn't finished, this one, but it's close, maybe one day.
It's a reminder for you to paint more Nurgle, and I'll keep insisting on that. So you're developing, you started off by just getting these singular models done and learning from that and developing techniques, and then into that more paint along phase where you're learning from essentially tutors, even if it's just indirect in terms of like the videos they put out. Then you're dividing the Magna style, and that then takes us up to, I'd say, near enough modern day with the Bastion.
Yeah. It is kind of because we've talked a ton about Dante already.
We can't talk about Dante anymore. Yeah, we'll be banned if we do. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, and this is a great example because this one basically took everything I learned on that model, together with everything from like earlier stages, and put it into the next project. So this one, like, I mean, I didn't plan on it for competition, like I never do. So I probably should have done more sub-assemblies or whatever, but I realized that I got a pretty nice look and something going on here that looks, I mean, I'm combining being very neat with everything and being very detailed. And that is something I kind of got from the Dante thing, where I might have an area that is like, you want to put a reflection or whatever, but it is big enough for me to put more than one, or I can do a bounce here, or I can do so. I'm definitely refining in the sense that I can go even like more precise and have even more information in the same area. So where if you took that one and put it besides the very first guy with the gold mail.
I will do that in the edit just for you.
Okay, they are so far like apart, because I've just refined and refined and refined, being neater and neater and neater, smooth and smooth and smoother, and while still keeping texture where I want it.
Yes.
And putting in even more information that I've done before. So yeah, this is kind of where I guess I've come to in the journey now, where I feel like I can get most effects to work out the way I want them to. And now I can put like a lot of light where I want a lot of light, not as much where I don't want as much, and a lot of information too. So yeah, all the things combined into one. Yeah.
I guess my outside perspective is you are someone who knows that you can get the paint where you want it to go. The thing you have to question is your decision making.
Yes, it is definitely, because now I kind of have the mechanical skill definitely is there to do the job, and I kind of have a catalog big enough for me to get almost any effect to work out. Now it is about like maximizing that, and that is very much in the decision making, for me to push on and push on. Yeah. And combining colors and combining posing, and yeah, there is it's not like I'm done. Yay, I got there. Not at all.
You've won miniature painting. Congratulations.
Yeah, I did it. I completed it. Wow, nice. So it's not like I'm still improving, but also for me, some of the things I am improving on is not having to put 200 hours into what I would consider a perfect paint job. Next time I want to put 150, or next time I want to put a 100 or whatever. So there is also definitely like a side to this of me getting better and better and better. And in combined with that, I get quicker, because now I know like the decision making is quicker for me. So now I know, okay, this really works out if I do it like this. And I think also kind of like for me, I had a big jump, definitely, from following along to like doing things myself to this. There are definitely big jumps, and some of the jumps are attributed to me teaching others how to do it, giving others feedback, putting into words and thinking what needs to change for this to be pushed even further.
Yeah.
Which means I spend a lot of time and effort thinking about painting, how to move to the next step. Where do I need to put this? Would it look better with that? All those like, and that's why I'm saying not only when you're sitting at the desk is improvement. You can have improvement when you're not even sitting there, because it is sometimes just the realization, oh no, I think if I chose to have like stronger light here, or even it could be, no, I don't want that shadow color.
Yeah.
Trying out some things that are like different from what I usually do. James R for me is a great example, because I tried out something that I hadn't really tried out before and had to think about how do I want this to work and how do I achieve it. And those are kind of the spots now for me to really improve and get to the next step. And that's why I'm saying the further you go, the harder it is to push that ceiling. And you can get into kind of that, like, this model doesn't look as great as I hoped. I thought I was better. Sometimes it's because progress is definitely not linear. Yeah. Not at all. So you can take it. It's not like you can happen to just not vibe with the model or the paint or even the state of mind you're in. So sometimes it can be a worse paint job. I want to be clear about that. It's not like every paint job has to be better. Sometimes it isn't. And it's happened to me too. But sometimes it is because you've kind of made a new normal. So now you're at a point where I can do what I did before consistently. Why doesn't it look better? Why am I not very happy with this? Because now you're actually in that progression where you're all up to the ceiling right now. Now you're pushing. Now you need to put in a lot of strength and work and pain and paint into this, and kind of like, okay, this is my effort to move that ceiling, right? Yeah. So and happens to me still all the time. Yeah.
I guess in terms of wrapping this conversation then, Magnus, you've been on a journey.
Yes.
If you could change one thing about it, or obviously with all the knowledge you have amassed now, how would you approach it differently? Or would you approach it differently? Is the journey part of it?
Yeah, so two things. One thing is I am firmly in the belief that I would not be the person I am today if I didn't go through everything I did, right? So with those glasses on, I would change nothing. But that's kind of like a life.
That's a cop-out answer. I'm gonna poke you.
Yeah. So not thinking like that, if I was to change something, I probably wish that I kind of came to a point where I was ready, and it was about the quality of the feedback I could get, and kind of like the quality of the information I could get. And if I could have gotten into that even earlier on, I never took tuition, and I would probably have benefited massively from it. I didn't find like Patreon tuition and stuff like that. And I didn't even really find my style either. So tuition is something that is a bit hard, because sometimes it's good even if you don't have a style. But as you can see, I had already kind of like my own look, but I didn't know all the pieces to put into that to keep that style. So I could have risked getting like sour with something, because I would then be veering too far off. But I think I could have benefited quite a lot from something like tuition, and just having, like, instead of posting your picture on Facebook and people say, wow, that is good, and sometimes the troll comes in, I could have sent it to someone saying, yeah, that looks really good. I think you're ready for this step, or I think if you want to take this VIP from here to even better, these are the specific things. So instead of having to figure that out every time yourself, and it wasn't a big problem because I am analytical, but I think I could have benefited massively from that. Yeah, that would be the one thing I would have done differently in my journey. Not right away, because I wasn't ready for it, but there was definitely a point where I was ready for it. Yeah.
And I think
that is
I guess I'd echo that too. Not the tuition piece. I mean, I've never done tuition, and so I'm sure it's very valuable. But I couldn't state with confidence, I wish I'd had tuition early. But I I wish I had found a community earlier. That's the only thing I would change. It is, I'd never appreciated the value of those voices. And quite critically in this day and age, finding people that share your passion, just a load of people that love paint, that really can't be undersold. Like, it can feel like when you're sat hunched alone at a desk, it can feel quite lonely, and that changes if you're in a hangout or if you've got like a ticker feed next to you of all the chat that's going on. Even aside from the valuable feedback you get. So that's the only thing I would perhaps change, is find a community earlier. But I was fortunate enough to find one pretty early on, so I ain't going to complain too much.
Yeah, and some people don't have like that much trouble with like keeping momentum and staying inspired and all of those things, but some people can struggle a bit with it. And I find that community helps massively, because you want to interact and you can see others having fun, so you kind of want to have fun. And it is contagious. It really is.
It really is.
And so finding a good community, very, very important. It makes your hobby experience so much better. I agree.
Well, I think after an hour, that draws us to a close, Magnus. Thank you, as always, for your time and your insights. And to our lovely viewers, thank you for watching this. Until the next one, I think we have some pieces coming up on non-metallic metals and on competition in the works. So looking forward to catching you all then. But until then, get painting, get good, and it's goodbye from me.
Bye-bye.